Hello everybody and welcome to Nathan on Shuffle and to my latest episode of Top 5. This is the show where I get a topic in progressive rock or related and talk about my top 5 in that topic. My wife comes up with the topics. I don't get much advance notice. I just look at the topic and come up with something off the top of my head, and it's a lot of fun to just talk about some of my favorite music and not to have the pressure of crafting the perfect list and something that everyone will universally agree with, because it's just not possible, as I've discovered. But I get a chance to spotlight some incredible music and some cool things in the prog realm. That's really what this show's all about, and also the chance to get to hear from you guys in the comments, because you guys always suggest things that are excellent and that bring me to new music that I hadn't heard before, so that's really appreciated. Today we're talking about the top 5 epics of the 2010s. This is a really great decade for prog music in my perspective. Of course, this decade just ended, so it's a very recent group of songs that I'm going to be talking about today. But I feel like prog has been flourishing in this later era, and that's basically why I started this channel, is because I feel like so many bands are doing such great work and such interesting things, really hearkening back to the classic era, but also forging new ground into more exciting pathways into the future. So I had a lot to choose from here, a lot of great epics, and I've decided to restrict epics to being something over 15 minutes in length. There was a lot of options, so that wasn't too restrictive for me. So some of the honorable mentions that I had on my short list: the Flower Kings track Numbers from Banks of Eden, just a fantastic modern epic from them from 2012. Transatlantic's Kaleidoscope and Into the Blue. I think Into the Blue is probably the one I prefer more, but both epics are really fantastic from their 2014 album Kaleidoscope. IQ's Without Walls from 2014's Road of Bones is a fantastic epic. I really like Marillion's Gaza from Sounds That Can't Be Made from 2012. Echoland's Island from their self-titled release that came out in 2012. And Neil Morse Band, Alive Again from the 2015 album The Grand Experiment, a really cool epic that showcased somewhat of a refreshed group for Neil Morse, who had some added members into his Neil Morse Band that really added some extra flair and some extra flavor. That one just barely didn't make the cut. Shocking that I didn't sneak on some Neil Morse onto my list, but there's so much to choose from. There were a lot of Neil Morse related epics this decade, as in any decade he's been producing music in. World Without End from Momentum is another example. Oh, Seeds of Gold I wanted to mention too, from Testimony 2. A fantastic epic that Neil Morse is a part of also. So getting into my top 5, this is an eclectic list, but this is what came to me. That, like I said, the ordering and everything could change on a whim, but this is what I thought of. So number 5, I have Fido and the track Snowtorch Part 1. In 2011, Fido came out with this album Snowtorch, which is just a delight, really styled in the classic prog way of having, it's really like a full song spread across the album. Snowtorch Part 1 and Part 2, similar to like Thick as a Brick Part 1 and Part 2. So really you can almost consider it one big epic piece, but it's separated by a shorter track in the middle, so I feel like each part is pretty distinctive. But to me, Part 1 of this epic album is just really incredible and goes through so many different moods and movements and has some great instrumental playing and just showcases this quirky, interesting style that Fido's known for. A little bit of a lesser known prog artist, but one that's definitely worthy of your attention because he's just fantastic and has released some great albums. I'm hoping that he comes out with something later this year. He's kind of teased some new music, but really an incredible artist in this prog world that I think is worthy of your attention. Maybe more in this art prog kind of space, perhaps, but a really great artist worthy of discussion. At number 4, I have Big Big Train and their track A Mead Hall in Winter from 2017's Grimspound. I also considered East Coast Racer, which is maybe more of the obvious choice here. Some of their other longer tracks didn't quite make the 15-minute cut, but I've always really liked A Mead Hall in Winter because it really plays with the aesthetic of the band and how they're really celebrating history and art and science and all of these things. And A Mead Hall in Winter is like the perfect description of all these great minds meeting together and being inspired, just like how I feel about Big Big Train's music in general. And it provided some music written by other members of the band and bringing in some more stuff from Rickard Soderblom and giving some feature to Nick DiVirgilio, who does a little bit of singing even on this track. So I really like the focus on the new members and that this really showcased Big Big Train in their newest era. And I just think it's a fantastic epic with so many cool instrumental moments, so many cool lyrical moments, and just showcasing a band who are expert storytellers and really are able to weave this really cool narrative and build this great track. So really incredible, really worth your time. Item number 3, I'm picking Haken and their track Visions from 2011. I also could have picked Crystallized from Restoration EP that they came out with, which is also fantastic. But I felt like going with Visions because it's just really indicative of this early Haken sound. It goes through so many different mood shifts and styles, and there's a jazzy, quirky section, there's a heavier death metal type section, there's Latin rhythms at a certain point, there's a Gentle Giant type counterpoint vocal type thing going on. You got a lot in this stew that just showcases their diversity, their creativity, and is the culmination of this great grand concept album, and how it all plays out is fantastic. It's a great ending, almost like a Twilight Zone-esque tale that really comes with a twist ending that's dark and satisfying and interesting. But it's just a really cool display from these prog metal standouts. I just think this was their decade, and they had such fantastic material. I believe even Celestial Elixir, which came on their previous album, would also be in contention. Another fantastic track from them. But Visions just showcased to me a really great side to their sound, a really singular epic that I think is one of their best works. So number 3, Visions by Haken. Number 2, I have Wobbler and their track From Silence to Somewhere from 2017. This is a title track from that album. A really incredible piece from Wobbler, who are known for crafting this vintage style sound that mixes the classic artists like Yes and Gentle Giant and Genesis even into this newer stew of great music that just really is epic in scope, has so many instrumental passages that are fascinating and well crafted. It's really creative and ambitious, and this whole album is a whole treat. It's one of the best modern prog albums that exists, and this is just one of the reasons why, because this is just such a fantastic, great epic that really explores so much of the prog style and sound that I just completely adore it. It's one of the peaks of Wobbler's already fantastic career. Every album they've crafted has been really fantastic, but this may be their best work, and it's all culminates in this massive epic that goes on so many different journeys and has so many different styles and sounds and really stays centered in this classic symphonic prog style. And I just think they're experts at how they're able to bring this classic prog sound but not make it feel dated or make it feel derivative, but bring their own freshness and their own excitement into it. And they're really masters at doing that, probably more than any other band of their style. So really fantastic. But number 1, maybe controversial, I don't know, but number 1 for me is Moon Safari's Lover's End Part 3. This is a fantastic piece of music. Lover's End was one of my favorite albums of theirs. I know a lot of people probably prefer some of their other works, but Lover's End really spoke to me at the time. It's just its subject matter and what I was going through. It's one of those albums that just really hit me personally and really exploded my love for this band, which are just excellent symphonic prog with beautiful otherworldly harmonies and some great vintage Yes style sounds and positive uplifting style. It's just, they're really fantastic at what they're able to craft and just make these sunny, beautiful melodies that always stick with me and are one of the most notable in prog. This was an interesting track that came out after the album release, but basically I consider as part of this Lover's End suite, that you get part 1 and part 2 on the Lover's End album, and then they come out with this somewhat of an EP with this really big epic track. But to me, it perfectly closes out the Lover's End album. It just is a really great expanded epic that is really heartfelt and sincere, has that typical Moon Safari symphonic style, so much great prog interplay and musical moments, but then you get their vocal harmonies and sections that are just heavenly, and it just runs the gamut between all that they're really expertly able to do. Me and Jana covered this on a Prog Song Sunday and had an excellent time listening to it, and that just cemented its place place as one of my favorite prog epics that I've ever heard. So I really recommend you listen to it. The only reason I said it might be a controversial pick is because maybe it's a bit more obscure and not quite one of the big examples that you might point to of modern prog, but I think they should be, and I think they're an overlooked band in some circles. I think they get a lot of love, so maybe they're not totally overlooked by all, but I just think they deserve so much more attention and acclaim, and I'm so hoping that they come out with a new album this year. That's what I'm still crossing my fingers for. It's been a big gap between their previous album, but really hopeful that they're going to come out with something really masterful. But this is a great, excellent track. So that's my top 5. A really interesting list of some great modern prog epics that I really love, that are by some bands that are really close to my heart. So please let me know in the comments what you feel. What are your favorite prog epics of the 2010s? I would love to hear it. So thank you guys for joining me, and I hope you guys just continue enjoying the music out there. Bye, everybody.